Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gonzalo Ornelas. I am the events coordinator for the Alumni Association. It's truly a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for joining us for the final installment of the UCLA Alumni Sip Share series. Today, we're excited to welcome UCLA alumnae Roselma Samala, Christine Sumiller, and Patricia Perez of Geneva, Sahra Nguyen of Nguyen Coffee Supply, and Karissa Hernandez of Chelas Nativo, The Empire Tavern, and Legacy Full Circle Financial. These extraordinary Bruins will join us for a candid conversation about each other's professional and personal journeys. They'll be joined by Yasmeen Muqtasid, our moderator for the evening. Yasmeen will help guide us through the busy worlds of our alumni and the details behind what led to their success, including the challenges they faced during the peak of the pandemic this year. The UCLA Alumnae Sip Share series was created to build an empowered network of women that choose to uplift other women. We want to emphasize that this event isn't about breaking through the glass ceiling, but more so sharing the amazing qualities these alumni possess to help build up other women. The UCLA Alumni Association would also like to acknowledge our presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples. If you'd like to learn more about why we recite this land grant acknowledgement at the beginning of our event, you can take a look at the link in the chat. Now that we've covered the basics, I'm excited to pass the conversation over to our moderator for the evening, Yasmeen Muqtasid, so that she can introduce herself and our extraordinary alumni.
Awesome. Thank you, Gonzalo. I am thrilled to be a part of this UCLA reunion of rock star women entrepreneurs taking the beverage and hospitality industries by storm. I feel a little bit like Andy Cohen on Bravo doing a Housewives reunion, but tonight will definitely be without the drama and only beauty, brains, and brawn here with our fellow Bruins who are brewing up some beautiful things and redefining what tastemaking is in their communities, and all while still engaging communities and creating inclusive spaces for all. So without further ado, I would like to welcome these lovely ladies to the Bruin virtual stage, Roselma Samala, Tanette Sumiller, and Patricia Perez of Team Geneva. These ladies of the Red Capiz Partners have known each other for over 2 decades since their UCLA years. Each of them have built their own successful careers in different industries, but they realized that they had a complementary skill set and that they had a story to tell as this dynamic trio. Hence, they built Geneva, an LA's historic Filipino town with an eye to elevate the work of women, and in particular, women of color. With inclusivity as their center, they have made a name for themselves for this Filipino-owned bar that offers a taste of their heritage while providing a hospitable and welcoming gin lounge to everyone in Los Angeles. Next up, we have Sahra Nguyen of Nguyen Coffee Supply. Sahra is an award-winning filmmaker, entrepreneur, and founder and CEO of Nguyen Coffee Supply. She is on a mission to transform the coffee industry through diversity and inclusion and transparency. In 2018, Sahra launched Nguyen Coffee Supply, the first ever Vietnamese and women-owned importer and roaster of green coffee beans from Vietnam. Her goal is to diversify the coffee industry and increase visibility and sustainability of Vietnamese coffee producers. And fun fact, which I didn't know, is that Vietnam is the #2 producer of coffee in the world. She works directly with 4th-generation Vietnamese coffee farmers whose beans are certified clean and organic. She's the daughter of Vietnamese refugees, and the company is a nod to her own Vietnamese heritage. And then finally, rounding out this crew of rock stars is Korissa Hernandez. With not just 1, 2, but 3 full-time enterprises, Korissa has made a positive mark on the community with Chelas, Nativo, the Empire Tavern, and Legacy Full Circle Financial. Wow. Karissa previously was a Los Angeles public school teacher during the height of the Great Recession. And even after parting ways with her career as a teacher, Korisa still continues to educate. She's the daughter of Mexican immigrants, and she has worked to create opportunities for entrepreneurs from underrepresented backgrounds by educating people in craft beer culture through women's empowerment and financial literacy. She is a modern day Brewster. So after that amazing introduction, I'm just so thrilled to be in the company of these rock stars. We are, midway in 2021, after a year that was so tumultuous for so many, really the hardest year of, anyone's life. And we're coming up on this, it was revealed to us so many things of last year. There were a lot of good things and a lot of bad things. And collectively, we had really two twin pandemics. We had the health crisis of COVID-19, and then we had the socio-cultural racial pandemic. And as we sit here on June 30th, 2021, on the eve really of July 4th, there are so many things to celebrate and to honor. And one of them is just the persistence of everyone here and all of you as Bruins. As I looked back at each of the previous programs that were hosted featuring all of you lovely ladies, there was one common theme that seemed to intersect, and it was that you all have been yourselves authentically, and that you've been unapologetic and bringing who you are to your business and to your community. I'd really like for you to share with the audience, why have you chosen to do that, and how has that impacted your business? And I'll shoot it over to Sarah to get us started.
I was literally about to take notes on this question. Wow, why did I decide? Yeah, so thank you, Yasmeen, first of all, for that amazing introduction. I think for me, the reason why I started Win Coffee Supply was because I felt like there was such a huge injustice being done to the Vietnamese community, Vietnamese farmers, and Vietnamese producers, which is, even though Vietnam is the second largest producer of coffee in the world, Vietnamese producers, Vietnamese coffee have been rendered invisible in the entire global coffee conversation, right? And I think this theme of like invisibility, lack of representation, lack of visibility is something that I felt just as a Vietnamese American my entire life growing up. It's why I majored in Asian American Studies. It's why I spent 6 years in documentary filmmaking and journalism, is wanting to bring that visibility. Because I think like as someone who grew up lacking that representation, I just felt like I couldn't be fully me. And so I guess I feel like as a filmmaker, as an entrepreneur, part of solving that for myself and like for our current society and how we interact with each other and also for the future generation is bringing ourselves fully authentically, right? To showing our peers, showing our industry, showing our environments, our workspace, our culture, and the generations before and after us that we can exist at many intersections and we can exist holistically and we are multifaceted and multidimensional, even though that's not always represented, right, in media or in government or in different spaces. So that's a little bit of why I feel like moving forward, it's so important for me to show up so authentically and to lean in to what makes me unique and different, which is my experience as a first-gen Vietnamese American daughter of refugees. And I've really brought that into the ethos of our business. And how has it impacted our business? It's really helped us, I feel like, win in this industry, right? Because while the entire industry is trying to meet a certain standard, especially coffee that's been dictated and dominated and created by people who don't look like farmers in other countries, right? AKA primarily white heteronormative folks who kind of dominate this industry. It's leaning into what makes you unique and different. It's authentic, but really what it does is it just creates room for other people to connect with your brand. And I may not reach everyone in the world, and that's okay. I just want to reach the people who are going to find connection with what I'm building.
That's awesome. I love that. Holistically bringing yourself and that you embody that with your ethos. I mean, it definitely comes across in just the passion that you have. Sarah, what about Team Geneva? I mean, distinctly, having this Filipino-owned bar in the historic, Filipino town, you really brought to life your culture and your heritage and lived into that.
Yeah, and I think it's a great question. it's just so much to that question. I think all of us are sort of like hesitant. How do we respond to this? But just a nod. Like I'm also Asian American Studies major, and was actually my year to go back in time when it was first approved to be a major. So like there's a strong history there. But I think it was during COVID that at least for us, we really saw how impactful our goals were for our business, something that we just wanted to do, something that we were just proud of being Filipino heritage and just wanting to put a highlight on that. But because we're also just so connected to the community and all us being women, like it strengthened our mission as we were running our business, and even more so during COVID, because we realized that our space was more than just a little bar in hi-fi. It represented to some people a place for communion, a place for them to just feel comfortable and be themselves, for them to really challenge what everyday life is, like to really think outside the box. And also, I think what became evident too during, you talked about there was the health crisis as well as the racial justice crisis. And even more so, it became more evident within our own community that it is still a fight for all of us, for all people of color. And we have to like join together in order to fight that. And so it made us even more conscious. Like, for example, we haven't opened yet, but we are planning to open. So as we develop our menu and like who we're gonna carry, just really trying to be even more thoughtful about that, because it can be easy to just default to what's the masses are partaking in, but we have to like kind of think above that. And I'll be honest, it's hard because there's not a lot of it out there. We have to really look for it. But any way that we can do that, we're trying to.
Awesome. I love that, Roselma. And what about you, Korisa? I know that you have, in particular, like opened up your space, and you've got 3 different, places of cultural connection, and you really lived into that.
I want to first start off by saying thank you to all of you beautiful, powerful women. It's always amazing to share space and be motivated and inspired. I find a lot of inspiration in what I do by being surrounded by women like you. Growing up, being the daughter of Mexican immigrants, I was blessed enough to grow up on both sides of the border, having to go back to Mexico so often to visit family in the summers. I got this firsthand experience of what Mexican culture really is. And coming back to the United States and seeing this interpretation that, people that aren't from within our community were creating spaces that were, Mexican food, Mexican beer, with this, fat mustache guy with the sombrero, it was just kind of not connecting for me. So, having a strong background in activism, I knew that when the opportunity came, I wanted to create a space that truly celebrated the Mexico that I know and bring that to Los Angeles. We're looking at a city that's comprised of 48.6% Latinos, yet there is no spaces that really celebrate what truly being Latinx means. And so a little bit of the history of Chelas, Boyle Heights is not only just the birthplace of the Chicano movement. So for me, it was symbolic to come back to this neighborhood and say, hey, all that movement and activism, I'm a living testament of what you guys fought for. Women of color being able to open a space here, thanks to all the work that the generations before us did. But also Boyle Heights was my family's first home in the United States. So it was a way to pay homage, thank you to Boyle Heights for allowing us our first platform in this country, but also paying homage to Guanajuato, where my family is from, and bringing those elements into this space. And, allowing people to feel validated and seen and celebrated. And it's really contributed to the success of this establishment here. Not to mention that, women have 85% of control of purchasing power, and no one's really speaking to us, and so why not create our own spaces? We all know what we like. We know we are our target market. So why wait for anyone else to do it? Let's do it ourselves.
Amen to that. I love that. And it sounds like, collectively, all of you have found a niche for yourselves and then brought yourselves authentically to that. And you're thriving and prospering with that as a result of just being yourselves. And I feel like that falls in line with this new awareness that our country is kind of going through, is embracing the multiculturalism and learning from one another. Just hearing what you guys have brought to the table, I'm learning, and that's what it's about. It's about opening up yourself to learning new things and embracing and experiencing new things. So thank you all for that. I would also like to ask you just this question, because as entrepreneurs, you probably face the hardest year of your lives. No one having ever been through a pandemic before. So was there anything from 2020 that you feel like you learned and now you're incorporating into your business?
I'll share a little bit. So, with everything that had happened in 2020, first, let me also take a step back. Geneva was born in 2013, but we really didn't open our doors until 2018. And around that time, it was the Me movement, right? So it was huge, it was hot at that time. And the fact that we opened then, and on the week of International Women's Day, it really brought forth this surge of feminism and feminine power that we really had in mind when opening the bar, as you know, and Korisa is very aware of. It's such a male-dominated industry, and so we really wanted to focus on, that 3 women could bring, what kind of business that would be, and really bringing in the feminine, right? And it's not soft skills. People should not be talking about this as soft skills anymore. These are, I think, as women owners, it's very different now on how to be a woman leader. It's very different now. It's not, the way that you, at least how I grew up in corporate. When I first came out of UCLA and read into corporate life, you had to be tough. You could not show any feelings and all that. But I realized that, especially in 2020, that's when to come in the business, because you had to empathize with, not only your staff who all of a sudden is out of work, right? But the rest of the people around you, the people who are coming through your doors who are no longer, those who are feeling isolated because they couldn't come out. And, and that was a big, not so much a revelation, but maybe a validation of why we do what we do, the way we do it, right? And it's, bringing in elements of ourselves, the feminine side, right? We have a masculine side, we have a feminine side, but the feminine side of ourselves, like we said, Yasmeen, unapologetically. And I think that was so important in 2020 because, it's not just us, it was everybody, right? Who was hit with it. And I think being able to be aware of everybody's situations and really making it work. And I think that was our biggest struggle, really, to see that all of a sudden, staff had no hours to work and really didn't have that help in the very beginning from the government either. So it was very important to us to make sure, to find work in any way possible, even if, virtually, contributing virtually and making sure everybody was safe. And then finally, right, creating ways once it was available, the cocktail to go at Geneva, and just, creating ways for people to stay involved, not just the staff, but the neighborhood and all of those that we all because of 2022.
Yeah, all good stuff. And I love that, what you said, that's another part of bringing yourselves as women, just those things that, talking about empathy, and that's also part of kind of who you are in that third dimension. Anybody else want to weigh in on that question? Or another question that I will also put out there, and you can choose whichever one you'd like to answer. How do you think UCLA prepared you for this journey in entrepreneurship?
I can jump in on the 2020. I can say that I learned that I'm stronger than I ever thought I was. I mean, that's not to say that 2020 didn't break me a few times, but understanding that you're in this position of leadership and really being there for the families in your business that depend on their jobs, and how do you find solutions to keep your business afloat and to come out on the other side. So I learned, I think that the silver lining was, number one, this beautiful small business community that all kind of came out to support and check on one another. It's just like, hey, are you good? I'm good. These are some resources. Let's help each other out. Let's see each other on the other side. Because the numbers are the numbers, and the people who were really affected were women and people of color small businesses. And there's statistics that show the lack of government support when it came to funding. And also just, being a constant student of your business and being willing to pivot, adjust your business to meet with the times. And things may not go back to the way I remember my business pre-pandemic. And I have to be okay with that. And how do I adjust it so that we can keep moving forward and continue being here for the community who's been here so much for us throughout 2020.
Yeah, that's so good. And I love what you said, Korisa, about sharing resources and how, with other business owners, making sure, hey, do you know about the PPP, or about this grant, or that is such a need. And it's that sharing of knowledge and knowledge transfer to make sure, there's enough for everyone, right? I feel like we live in a world of abundance, and it's helping out, because as other businesses thrive, you thrive, right? And I feel like that's also really what this program is about too, sharing this forum of resources and knowledge and this network. What about for you, Sahra? I know, you're, you've really started something very innovative. What would you say, probably being the youngest of the group, closely, but you're not too far removed from UCLA. How do you think UCLA prepared you for this journey of entrepreneurship?
It's funny, I talk about UCLA all the time now in my work, because my work is so mission driven. It's all about uplifting and empowering my community locally, nationally, and globally. It's all about increasing visibility and agency. It's all about literally rebuilding and building a new supply chain that's rooted in equity and sustainability, right? And people always oh, what's your background? Business, CPGs? And we're like, nope, Asian American Studies, right? And it's funny because Asian American Studies now is cool, right? Ethnic Studies now is cool. Being woke is cool, right? And there's just this whole new level of collective consciousness and radicalization, which I'm so happy that we're at as a society. But, when I was in undergrad from '05 to '09, like H&M was not cool. Like everyone's like, what's H&M? Your major H&M? What's that? What are you going to do with that? Right? I was like, well, what are you going to do with the H&M major? It was it wasn't hard for me, but it was like, I felt really misunderstood. And even my parents are like, what is your major? Like, why are we paying all this money? Like, you're already Asian American. Why do you need to take Asian studies? Right? And I felt like I had this feeling of like, I had to constantly justify my major. Like when I was going through it, when I applied into it as a high school student, when I was going through it as I graduate, like, what are you gonna do? And I actually was a keynote speaker at this year's Asian Studies Department commencement, which is really special because I was the student speaker when I was graduating '09. And it just feels so good to be able to say like, yeah, Asian American Studies prepared me for this, and not just for this. And it's easy for people to make a connection now because of like the headlines they see, and I could draw that connection. But it's really like Asian American Studies connected to the theme of like showing up authentically prepared me as a human to navigate this world, right? Because within entrepreneurship, within life, you're gonna, even like such as 2020, the pandemic, we are constantly faced with unknowns in a business, in entrepreneurship, in life. And for me, I always tell people, when you're faced with unknowns, you have to have your North Star, and that is your why. And your why is rooted to knowing your voice and your values and who you are and your history and your roots to know where you're going forward. So I always say like Asian American Studies, helped me develop my voice. It helped me find my voice. It helped me find my power. It gave me like the critical thinking tools to problem solve during things like pandemic. It gave me the context of society and culture to know how I can move through this space, how I can code switch, whatever. So I always love talking H&M up and UCLA because I want H&M to get more money, and so definitely that. And real quick before I wrap, I was pretty involved in undergrad. I was involved in the community programs office and the student union. Pledge, which is a student referendum. So I was involved with a lot of community organizing spaces on campus. And I think that really deepened my sense of community. And also, especially as we were reflecting on the last year of COVID 2020, it's like, it was this constant battle of like, you want to keep your business going and like operating in this like odd space of capitalism, not that odd, but really what mattered is like community. Like, how do we organize together, because we're really the only ones who can take care of each other, as we've seen over the last year. So I think from the community spaces on campus and then through my program H&M, I feel really well equipped to take on whatever comes my way. I also, when at some point, Yasmeen, I do have a question that I want to throw out at Team Jennifer as we were talking just naturally.
Well, I just wanted to add, Sarah, because
Yeah.
like I think one of the things that I always talk about at UCLA, because I was also really involved like with the Campus Retention Center and one of the student groups, and I just remember like Tim and Mandela. I don't know if they're still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they would always tell us you can create whatever you want for yourself. And so I always remember that. But I think like the past year, what has taught us or emphasized more is not that just we can create whatever we want, but we also have the power to behave however we want, and to like we have the power to say like, we don't want to work with you because you don't respect my community, or you don't respect women, or you don't respect collaboration. It's like having that power, I think, has also been strengthened over this year.
Oh, I love that. I kind of want to build on and throw it back to Korisa or Team Genevieve, tonight, Roselma. Somebody said earlier, Roselma, of like, you said about as you're building a business, like not just defaulting to what everyone is doing, maybe who they're using, and how to think above that, right? And I thought that was so beautiful and so powerful. And you're right, I often think about that as well as we're building out, really designing this world through entrepreneurship. Like, which manufacturing company do I want to work with? Like, do I want to work with a company that's not in Vietnam, like maybe a bigger one in Asia, or do I want to work with Vietnam, even though they may be a little less developed in manufacturing, but do I invest the time to help them get there? And yeah, that's what we do. We oftentimes take the harder logistical pathway in manufacturing, producing, or getting a vendor or product because we want to work with a certain community or our community. And I just love what you said there, and I think it's so true, like that power to behave and choose who and how we design the system and network is also powerful within the world of entrepreneurship.
And you know what, Sarah, to that point, and it's kind of, it is uplifting because, you know, you continue on that path and something will happen that align with, you know, that original plan of yours or ours in general, right? Because like, for instance, when we first started, on our menus, we would highlight a female owned or distilled or touched spirit with a feminine symbol, and we could barely put any up at the beginning. But every time a distributor would come around and, you know, they'll say this, what about this? We'll always say, was it touched by a woman? Is it woman owned? Is it? So now they come around and say, hey, look, this is women owned. This is women touched, you know. It changes the narrative. It changes their impetus, right? For what to show us. You know that that's what we want. So,
Wow.
So it makes a difference. Yeah.
Yes, it's so powerful. Thank you, Danette.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love what you guys said about, you know, influencing and pushing back, right, on the supply chain, right, and being intentional about that. And then what you're doing is you're forcing those within the supply chain to then be conscious about it and bring that awareness to them, like, oh, there's demand for this.
Yes.
There's this consumer base willing to pay for this, and to sometimes even pay a more heftier premium price because they want to contribute to fair trade, sustainability, some of the things that you were talking about, Sarah. There was a question that came in the chat. I definitely want to make sure we give it to you all. And that is, you know, as entrepreneurs, like, is there, and I know as many times entrepreneurs go through ups and downs, like, how do you guys motivate yourselves to like go for it? And what have you done to continue to help yourselves persist through the turmoil?
Well, I'm a huge advocate about mental health and making sure that you have a work-life balance. You know, owning 4 businesses, it's easier said than done, to be really honest with you, but it's really about, you know, getting up that hour earlier to make sure I get that quiet time with myself, to journal, to set my intentions, to get my workout, to stay as healthy and energized as I can possibly be. And really just pay respect to, you know, that mental sanity that I need and to feel okay. My motivation is actually just my mother. You know, I think about her experience in the United States. You know, she had 7 kids that she had to feed, and she didn't speak the language. She didn't have a car. She worked 3 jobs. So what do I have to complain about? And so when people are like, you know, where do you find all this like energy to keep going? I'm just like, you know, she sacrificed everything so that I could have this opportunity. I don't want it to go in vain. So I just find a lot of inspiration in her. May she rest in peace. But yeah, I think that that's my motivation.
Love it. Anybody else? Like, what keeps you going in those dark times? What do you do?
Cocktails.
Yeah, lots of those. Lots of those.
It's obvious though for Geneva people to say that, but I'll just say similar to Korissa, like we do a lot of we remind ourselves of work-life balance, you know, and I know I did a lot of meditation, especially when COVID first hit. We were the first ones to be shut down. What does that mean? How do we navigate that? The stress of trying to find or understand these government programs and just the stress of everything, like meditation really helped. But I think also we touched upon it, you know, there's 3 of us and not just 3 owners, but then we also have our staff. And Like we really helped each other out. We brainstormed with each other. When one person might be like, I give up, the other person will come in and be like, no, no, no. And so it's that community, not only amongst us as owners, but just also within our staff and our friends and family too, like just really encouraging us and supporting us when we needed them. And even I'll include that with our vendors too. We had vendors that were like reached out to us, like, how can we help you? And that was like really like, oh my God, it was just so touching. And I think that is one thing that motivates us, is that we have made an impact on people, and how can we continue to do that the best that we can.
Yeah, that's so good, Roselma. It sounds like, so we've got to have our drinks, we've got to have our squad, and we got to have our meditation. Those
Yes.
to
Perfect
keep
formula.
sanity.
Cocktail,
We touched
so it doesn't have to always be as a drink.
Yes. I think Sarah might have mentioned this, and it kind of leads to another question. As entrepreneurs, raising capital can be a big challenge, right? For women, there's even less capital, less VC funding, for example, for women entrepreneurs. And then for women of color, it is even that much more challenging. So can you all speak to, how did you guys raise capital? Is there a tip or an organization that really helped you in getting, funds to help scale your business?
Mm-hmm. I'll hop in here because I'm actually in the process of doing this right now. I just kicked off my late seed round. So I would say in my space of direct to consumer CPGs, I think in the beginning, it's if you want to go institutional funds, VCs, it's very difficult to get money pre-product, when you're in the idea stage, unless you're just really well known in the industry or you have a family or rich relative or something. So I'd say in the beginning, when you're really early, you're still taking time to build your business and find your groove, just really focus on, I think, believers, right? The people around you, whether it's friends or family. I never understood friends and family. My friends and family aren't rich. I don't understand people raise $1 million friends and family around. I literally scoured the internet, DMs, LinkedIn, this friend from middle school. I was so desperate the first time I raised some of my friends and family around, and I asked anyone I could tell, I'm raising money, do you know anyone who wants to invest? I would just shoot out to everyone, and I basically just got my first 200K. I launched by myself with my savings and a credit card. I didn't pay myself for the first year and a half, and then after I got some traction, I raised 200K in fall of 2019. And then from there, I just kept building up my milestones. And then the next round was actually still angels, but some more reputable angels and some small funds and family funds. And then and now this round, I'm entertaining both angels, strategic angels, but also VCs. And now I'm at a stage where VCs will talk to me because I have traction, evidence, all this stuff now. But across all the stages, whether it's early angel, friends and family, individual, small funds, or VCs, I would definitely say if you're looking for capital, whoever you're talking to, you will not need to convince them to invest in you, right? It's not about convincing people to believe you. It's about finding the believers, right? Who already get you, they understand you, they know where you're coming from, they see your vision clearly, and it's about whether they want to be a part of it, right? Whether it makes sense for them at this moment in time, it makes sense for you. And finding investors is not about convincing people, and I've come across that. I've come across a full spectrum where people who just don't get it all and want to nitpick the shit out of my business, and people who I don't even need to show them the deck. I don't even need to explain that they get it, right? And those are people you want to focus on. And one more piece of advice someone gave me was, it doesn't matter how much money you take from people, it's who you take money from. I think that's really important to think about. And no matter what stage you're at, even if you're early, you don't have to be desperate. As much as they're vetting you and your business and your model and your financials, you want to vet your investors just as well, right? Like you always have power in that process, no matter how much revenue you have or how much money in the bank you have yourself and your idea and your grit and your work ethic. You will find a way to get your business there. So just make sure that, you don't forget about the power that you hold in this fundraising process.
Some really good gems. I love all of that. I like really, especially what you said in terms of, because a lot of times people do feel desperate, right? And you talked about, Sarah, like holding on to, your vision and realize you still have power even when you are in a place of need.
Yes.
And then also just, it really resonated what you said about the people who are going to be your investors. They're going to get you like that. And you're not going to have to explain. They're already on board. It just clicks. So really sound advice. Anybody else? I know, Geneva, you guys did a Kickstarter, right? Like talk about crowdfunding, because I think, that's something that, a lot of people have heard about. They know about it now. It's not even new anymore. But that was a big opportunity for you guys.
Yes, Yasmeen, we did do a Kickstarter to supplement our fundraising, and what's great about it is a great friend of ours from UCLA actually helped us with thinking about the Kickstarter because he had done it himself in fundraising for a film. So alumni, UCLA alumni, friends and family are still always supportive no matter what, right? And with a Kickstarter, we thought that it would be a good way to also bring in the community, our friends and family, without saying, do you have $1 million? Right? I mean, they're not going to have $1 million to give us, or tens of thousands of dollars to give us, but it still allows them because, they did ask, how can we help? So and Roselma's leaning over because she's showing, and let me explain why she's leaning over. So for part of the Kickstarters, as there are rewards that come with contributing, right? So there are different ways that we had our rewards, and the biggest one is there, and she's showing Geneva. So not really knowing what it meant, you could actually, get a reward of getting your name on the wall, right? And so not knowing what that was, people actually did it. And what we did was we had a fellow UCLA alumni from New York, she's an artist, create this mural behind Rose. So all of that is on canvas and is hand painted and hand stamped. And what she did was, what she did was hide over 100 names of Lady Geneva's skirt. So when people come in, then it becomes like a word find, right? So they'll come there and they'll look for their names. And then other ways that people contributed was to get their name on a table. So they can come in and they'll see their names on the table. And like that gold one that Roselma is pointing to. So and ahead of time, they could actually reserve for it, right? They have their name on the table. And the first ones that like really flew out the door was having your name on the bar stool. With the restrictions, you could only have X number of bar stools, for the length of your bar. And that went really fast. So, and yes, Roselma says she doesn't have a photo of that, but, and it becomes really fun because what happens is we have to warn the people at the bar and say, please don't be alarmed if somebody comes out with their phone and starts like, trying to do a flash on, on behind you. They're just looking for their name to probably tell a friend who's, coming in with them, oh, I have a name on my bar stool kind of things. Please don't get offended. And then other ways too was to get their name on their own Lowball. So they can drink from their own glass when they come there. And, really feel like they're part of, building this bar because we really built it onto the floors. We brought in the floors as well. So it looked very different than it was before. And it was really nice to be able to come in and know that you're part of this bar and you belong here. So that was how we did the Kickstarter.
That's great. It's so creative and I think so timely. Korisa, I really would like to hear you weigh in on this too, because you've actually scaled. So you just don't have one location, you have several. And so obviously you are tapping into some capital somewhere. So tell us a little bit what your journey's been like with that.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, like many of us have talked about, we don't come from rich backgrounds with rich aunts and uncles. It was really trying to figure out how to fund these projects. And in the beginning, my husband and I made every rookie mistake in the book. I mean, we sold all of our assets, all of them that we had ever accumulated. And yeah, to this day, I'm like, what did we do? But it's like the streets way of learning or earning a doctorate degree in business, so we've learned from our mistakes. And what that first project lent us was a customer base that really fell in love with the work ethic that we brought and the passion that we brought to our spaces, and just how impressed they were from, taking this building from scratch and really creating this inviting, safe space that celebrated craft beer culture. So people, as they would come in, would tell us, next project we want in. And so what we started doing was just taking mental note of like, okay, she said that, he said that, she said that. And so when the opportunity did come to open our next project, we invited all of those people to a presentation and we really prepared for it. And I think that something that's really important that Sarah talked about was how much work she put in prior to reaching out to investors. I think that a mistake most people make is asking for money right off the bat without, really showcasing that they're willing to sacrifice it all to make this dream come true and this vision. So it's really important that people see you really dedicated to your passion. And so, over the last 3 years, we've raised 1.8 million in investor funding, to the point where we didn't need so much money that we were telling, thank you, but we were telling investors like, we got to the point where we could say, what is this investor, what value do they bring to the table?
Yes.
To the growth of this brand. And so we would, turn some away and let others know, like, maybe not this project, maybe a future one. So it took a lot of work and sacrifice to get there. But we're blessed that we've gotten there. And it really just took, relationship building, never burning bridges, networking, work ethic. When you think people aren't watching, they're watching. And so, all that hard work that we all put into our businesses through this pandemic to really keep our businesses afloat, people were watching, and so those of us who are coming out on the other side, there's people that want to be part of that. It's admirable, and people want to be part of something bigger than them. Especially something that's so passion driven and so different and so aligned with a mission and a movement. That's what people want to see win these days. So, just have something passion driven, something unique, something that's that speaks to, a population that may have been overlooked for a long time, and believe in it wholeheartedly.
Oh, well, congratulations. That's huge to raise nearly $2 million. So that's awesome. Really.
Cheers. Cheers to
that. Yeah, cheers. Cheers.
It's a lot of responsibility, as you all know, man. It's crazy, but I'm very excited.
Yeah.
It's so funny that you everyone is saying that word believe, right? Believe, because that was our hashtag for Kickstarter. It was believer and Geneva, so they know how to roll off the tongue. Yeah, we're so aligned over here. I love it.
Love it.
That's beautiful. I love it.
Awesome.
Okay, so I just want to actually say I love what you said, how, and I'm so just inspired and proud that your passion, your grit brought you to this position where it was like, oh, you want to invest? What can you give me? What value can you bring me besides your dollars? Like, to be in that position that is the position of power, right? That you have maintained from the very beginning. And so I just love that you were able to just like build up so much, I guess, interest, but really it was just like this movement they were building and they want to be a part of it. And the tables have not turned, but it was like, just to be able to be like, oh, well, what else can you bring besides money? Like, that's so incredible.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like as we come to a close, definitely a lot of great themes, but one that kind of seems to really resonate and be highlighted from everything that you all have shared is just like leaning into your own power, right? Just what, you both just said, leaning into that power as you bring yourselves authentically to this space of entrepreneurship, as you create inclusive spaces with your business for other people, and as you challenge other people to be more inclusive down the supply chain for whatever it is that you're bringing to the forefront. So with that, we'd like to leave on a positive note. We know what one word would probably come to mind for everyone if I ask you one word, describe 2020. But instead, I'll ask you one word, lightning round, for each of you to describe, or what word are you focused on in 2021?
Resilience. I even got it tattooed, guys.
That was literally the first word in my brain too.
I was gonna say creativity.
Yeah. What about you, Jeanette?
Roselma, that was my word.
Like twins, like twin psychic power here.
I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, now that you took that one, I'm kidding. We always do this. We always show up sometimes wearing the same color clothes, all this. It's weird. It's funny. And it's funny, resiliency also, came up, and but I had this word, now I forgot. I'll come back and say it again later.
Well, I was gonna say resilience, but the next word that comes to my mind is confidence. And sorry, I'm gonna stop. One word, confidence, from everything 2020. We can do this.
Excellent. Well, thank you all. This has been such an honor to connect with you all and to share your insights and your best practices and just really your story. And that's really a part of this. Like, bring your story in 2021 and find those believers. Said, I will turn it back over to Gonzalo and the UCLA alumni team.
Thank you so much, Yasmeen. Thank you, Yasmeen. For those of you who have not had a chance to meet yet, my name is Julie Sina, and I have really the joy of leading our Alumni Association alongside these amazing women. And thank you so much for being here tonight. I think we started talking about how we gathered with this theme of bringing together women who, I think at the beginning, talked about breaking through the glass ceiling. I think that has been done and dusted with this group. And the thing that I think is just so amazing among the themes, Yasmina, you touched about is how Bruins do this. This incredible group of Bruin women that talked about your journey as one of partnership, as one of collaboration. And we acknowledge the work that you've done, both leading, inventing, and in many cases, reinventing your industries. And I think another word that came through strong is you've done that with your own individual authenticity. So thank you so much for the way that you've inspired us with your journey. And I think the other thing that really came through, and Yasmeen, you really brought this out, is the way that we do this as Bruin and Bruin leaders is through inclusive community within our community, finding spaces for Bruin to gather and to be inspired and to invent and to reinvent ourselves along the way. So I guess I would end this gratitude to you with something that again came up tonight, and that is to challenge each of us, just as you have, to know our why, and to know our why around how we build and lift and sustain this incredible brewing community that we're a part of, because that's what we do, right? We look out for each other, we build up each other, and we're constantly there for each other. So may we continue to support each other on this journey and just look forward to continuing to travel with you. So thank you so very much. And Gonzalo, in turning it over to you, I also want to acknowledge your leadership and that of Sandy and Patricia and our team alumni in bringing this gathering together. And we're not done. We're going to take a pause, but we'll be back. Gonzalo, back to you.
No, thank you, everyone. Honestly, it's really been indescribable how much it's been of a pleasure that it's been working with all of you. I wish it can be even more past the extent that it has been so far. This has been not only an amazing event now, but an amazing series as a whole. Like I mentioned many times in the past, I've caught myself just watching instead of, I forget that I'm supposed to be, keeping track of this, keeping track of that. You're truly all amazing. And I really do appreciate everything you've all done and contributed to alumni since February. And like Julie mentioned, this is not the end. This is only a pause in what we're doing. And I just wanted to thank you all again for taking the time to be here with us tonight and making it possible for alumni to connect through a successful series of events and this series as a whole. And never thank you enough. So thank you to everybody watching, and thank you to all of our amazing panelists.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, thank you.